Hello, Brokers Guild agents and admins. First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you today for taking the time out of your busy schedules to learn more about Realty Back Office. Give me a moment here. Had a call just coming in. Let me turn this off here real quick. And so sorry about that. Like I was saying, welcome to the Realty Back Office introduction webinar. For those of you that don't know, Brokers Guild has chosen Realty Back Office to be the platform where you guys, as a brokerage, are pretty much going to be able to run your entire real estate business online. Before we get started, guys, I will like to introduce myself. Actually, before we get started, what I want to do is a sound and vision check. I want to make sure that you can hear and see my screen. So if I can see a few yeses, in the upper right-hand side of the page, there should be a question box. If I can see a few yeses, that'll indicate to me that you can both hear and see my screen. So I see a few yeses already. So I will go ahead and proceed now with the introduction. So my name's Javier Alvarez, and I am the Director of Customer Success here at Realty Back Office. And I first got into the real estate business back in 2001 when I first received my real estate license. A couple of years later, in 2004, I went on to receive my broker's license. In 2005, I opened up my own brokerage here in sunny South Florida, and I am extremely passionate about everything real estate, especially about helping brokers and agents become more efficient and automate their real estate business. Now, today's goal is to go over all of the main modules and features that you as an agent are going to be using on a daily basis. All right, so Realty Back Office does a whole lot. We're not going to go over the entire software today. We're going to go over the very basics of what you're going to be using on a day-to-day basis, which include, so we're going to kind of go over the agent dashboard really quickly. So that's like the first page that you will see when you first log into Realty Back Office. So we're going to skim through that and go through that really quickly. We're also going to go over all of the available agent reports available to you as an agent in Realty Back Office. So not a lot to do in the reports, just consume data. So we'll look at that today as well. And then the main module that we're going to look at today is transaction management. We're going to show you how to upload documents into transactions, how to manage your transactions, and of course, how to do CDA requests, all right? And, here and there, I'm pretty sure that we'll go over some different things as well. Now, before we get started as well, I want to let you know that I am recording the session, so you'll be able to look at this as many times as you like. So after the training here, I'll go ahead and send the recording to everyone who participated. And also, guys, if you do have any questions while we're in the training here, please feel free to ask any questions that you might have in the question box there in the upper right-hand side of the page. Feel free to ask any questions, and the moment that I'm done covering, the module that I'm covering, at the time of your question, I will pause for a bit and make sure that I answer each and every one of your questions. I believe you guys are going to start using Realty Back Office starting August 1st. So we want to make sure that each and every one of you are trained and that we, of course, answer all of your questions. So again, don't be shy. If you have any questions, feel free to type them upper right-hand side of the page, and I will be happy to answer any questions you might have, okay? So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and get started here. Now, I want to confirm if I can see a few more yeses, if you guys can see the agent dashboard over here. So it's got the Brokers Guild colors. A few more yeses, please. All right, awesome. All right, so when you as an agent, when you first log into Realty Back Office, you're going to be introduced with a dashboard just like this, all right? So this is the agent dashboard, and in the dashboard, you don't do a lot, really. All you do is consume data, okay? So again, the first thing we're going to do is kind of go over this agent dashboard, and then we'll go into transactions, and then we'll look at reports, okay? So when you first log in the top, let's first start with the navigation over here in the top. So upper left-hand side of the page, you have your navigation, all right, which will take you to the different modules of Realty Back Office. And again, as you can tell, Realty Back Office does a whole lot. So we have many modules. We have transactions. We actually have a forms library and e-sign software. There's actually a CRM as well. There's a task management view. There's a contact manager. There's a calendar. There's the reports. And then there's different settings. We're gonna stick to the basics today. We're only gonna go over the dashboard, transactions, and then reports. And of course, if you have any questions here and there, then I'd be happy to answer them, okay? So starting with the dashboard, guys, again, when you first log in, upper left-hand side of the page, you have your navigation. Over to the right, you have an option where you can do a feature request to us, should you ever have a feature request. To the right of that, there's like a little bell, and as you can tell, there's a notification there. This is where we notify you. You click here, this is where we notify you of any new features that we might have released that you as an agent could take advantage of. And to the right of that, there's a button and it reads training. All right, so we do have live training every month. So once a month, we do a live training that covers where we go through an entire walkthrough of the entire software. Plus, we go and we tell you about any features that we might have released the previous month. Now, in addition to that, we have plenty of on-demand agent training as well. So you can always click on this option over here, and this will take you to our knowledge base here where we have videos. We had a previous knowledge base, which was all written. You basically had to, it was a knowledge base, very extensive knowledge base in each and every one of our modules. We're now doing it video based. So every week we're adding new videos here. So there's an agent training, like a 1 hour long agent training where we go through an entire workflow. There's general videos, there's some videos on e-sign, and then there's some videos on some of our integrations. But again, come here from time to time because we are updating these videos every week. And these are small videos that you can consume very quickly, 1 to 3, 4 minutes long, okay? And then, of course, guys, if you come in here and your question's not answered, upper right-hand side of the page, you can always submit a ticket. And you can also schedule a 15-minute consultation with an RBO expert in the upper right-hand side of the page over here, okay? So going back to Realty Back Office over here, when you first log in, you can see some really quick stats. So you can see how many active transactions you as an agent you have currently. You can see how many you have under contract. I'm having an amazing year. I have 104 transactions under contract. And I can see how many transactions I've closed year to date. Now, at any given time, you can click on any of these options over here, and it'll actually take you to the properties that represent that specific number there, okay? So going back to the dashboard over here, underneath that, guys, we have an announcements area. So this is if the brokerage adds any announcement, you would see here. So maybe a new agent training, you know, any announcement that they add, you would see here. And you, as an agent, you can also add an announcement. So maybe you took a new listing, you're having an open house on the weekend, and you want to invite all of your colleagues. You can click on the add new announcement, give it a title, give it a body, maybe upload a picture of the property, right? Give some information about the property over here. And of course, as your colleagues log into Realty Back Office, they will see that announcement. All right. To the right of that, you just have some basic information on your brokerage. So, you know, you need to contact your brokerage. You don't know the phone number off the top of your mind. You can call, you can see it here, their email address, just contact information for your office. Okay. Now, underneath those two modules there, we have two charts. Now, the chart to the left is going to show you your closed transactions by month. So you could kind of hover over the different months and see how many transactions you've closed. The chart to the right is actually going to show you your sales volume by month, okay? So you'll never have to second guess again, you know, how many transactions have I closed or what's my sales volume. Here we break it down by month, but like I said earlier, and today we are going to go over the reports because it's something very simple. We have plenty of reports on the agent side. We have all kinds of stats reports, and we also have forecasting reports where you as an agent, you can forecast your commissions into the future, okay? But we'll take a look at those later on. But again, these two charts, again, the one to the left shows you your closed transactions by month, and the one to the right shows you your sales volume by month, all right? Underneath those two charts there, we have a module called transactions with pending tasks. So this is where we're going to show you a list of all transactions that have outstanding tasks. So we'll show you the property address, the transaction status, whether it's active, under contract, or close. We'll show you the transaction type and how many outstanding tasks you have in that transaction. Of course, you can click on the property address here and go directly into the transaction. And last but not least, guys, down at the bottom here of the dashboard, we have what we call the favorite links and vendors. So this is where you would see all of the different resources that your brokerage has made readily available for you, okay? So here you would see like the logos for all of the different resources, but what you can do, upper right-hand side of the module here, there is a filter, and you could kind of come in here and filter the favorite links and vendors by category, okay? So maybe your brokerage has added some marketing resources for you or some office resources sometimes, and I'm not sure if your office has done it yet or not, but if you need the logos, sometimes like the logos, a favorite link and vendor, or maybe favorite link and vendor might be where to order business cards, for sale signs, things like that, right? So I can click on marketing, for example, and I would see all of the available resources that my brokerage has made available for me for marketing. And again, this is a demo account, guys. This is not, I branded it with the Brokers Guild color, so you can kind of get a look, get a feel for the look and feel, but this is not like your actual admin's account. So the favorite links and vendors that you might have might be different, okay? But nevertheless, it's gonna look somewhat like this. And you can click on any of the favorite links and vendors, and that'll take you to their website, for example, right? And then if your brokerage has added any additional information that might be important that you should know about the favorite link and vendor, you can click on view details, and you would see those details there. All right, so before I go ahead and proceed, guys, I think this is all pretty straightforward, but before I go ahead and proceed and go into transactions, does anyone have any questions on the dashboard, and what do you guys think so far? Do I need to go a little slower? Do you want me to go a little slower? Any input would be greatly appreciated. All right. Good to go. You're doing great. Going great. Awesome. Looks good. So your point is choppy. Slow down a bit with the movement. All right. Thanks, Brett. Thanks for the feedback. Awesome. All right. So there's a question. Will we have a certain login? So yeah, I would say that for the most part, you guys are all inactive right now. I think this first training it was something that we needed to do before the office went ahead and made you active. But I think slowly but surely, you guys are all going to start to receive an email. As they make you active, you're going to receive an email with your credentials. And once you receive that email, then you could kind of start coming in here and adding any transactions that you might have. All right. So, all right, so that's that. So I will go ahead and proceed. So with that said, the next module that we're going to look at, guys, is transactions. All right, and when you as an agent click on transactions, we're going to show you a list of all your transactions. Okay, so you as an agent, you're only going to see your own transactions, right? Now, in the upper right-hand side of the page, as you can tell right underneath my picture there, there's an upside down triangle. All right, that upside down triangle always represents a filter. All right, so let's say you have hopefully 200-300 transactions in here, right? And a client calls you, and they want you to send them the contract for a particular transaction, right? Maybe the client for this property here called you 3870, and let's just pretend this transaction was a couple pages behind, right? All you would need to do is go to the filter here and search for the transaction, right? Now you have plenty of different ways of searching for the transaction. You can search for it by address. So if I come in here and I say 3870, that transaction will come up here in a few seconds. All right, let's give it a few seconds here. And there it is. And of course, I'd be able to go into the transaction. All right, so let's undo that. Get rid of my password manager here. So you can search for transactions by address. You can search for transactions by the contact involved. So maybe you did several transactions with a particular buyer and you wanted to search for all of those transactions. You could put in the name of that buyer and we would show you all of the transactions they were involved in over here on the left. You can search for transactions by transaction type, right? You can also search for transactions by your role in the transaction. Maybe you want to search for all of the transactions where you're the listing agent. You can certainly do that. Maybe you want to search for all of the ones that are under contract. you can of course do that. So by default, guys, we show you all transactions, but again, using the filter, you could filter them all. And then you can also search for transactions by closing date, by created date. You can search for transactions that you might have done maybe, we call them paid at closing. We might be changing those for commission disbursement authorizations, CDAs, but a paid at closing for us, guys, is a CDA. So maybe you want to search for all the transactions where you did a CDA request and the CDA request hasn't been approved yet, and so on. Okay, so these are all of the different ways that you as an agent can filter your transactions. All right, now what we're going to do, guys, is do a little bit of role playing. All right, I'm going to pretend right now that I am the agent, right, and I just went out to a listing presentation. Sellers were super pleased with everything, so they gave me the listing, right? So very important, the moment that you put a transaction together, whether you are a listing agent or a buyer's agent or you're both, right, that you create that transaction immediately. All right, so every time you put a deal together, first thing you want to do is come in here and create a transaction. Now, I'm going to show you, of course, how to do that. To create a new transaction, upper left-hand side of the page is an Add Transaction button. Now, before I go ahead and proceed, let me make sure I went over a few things. And I want to make sure that there's no questions. So how do I get the visual mode? James, I've confirmed with plenty of folks and everyone seems to be able to see me. So if you could kind of maybe restart the app again. All right. So there's another question. Are we getting access before August 1st? Not sure. You need to ask your office that. Someone else is saying they can't see the picture. All right, guys, I've had 2 people now say that again, and I know we've confirmed a few times, but I do want to make sure I'm not just talking away and that you guys can't see the picture. All right, I can see it. I can see it. I can see it. So, all right, so guys, I have a whole lot of folks saying they could see it. So for those of you that can't, I suggest you go back into the email and you just run the software again, okay? But for the most part, I'm getting a lot of confirmation saying they can see it. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed. All right, guys, so to add a transaction, upper left-hand side of the page, you want to click on Add Transaction. We make it very easy to add a transaction. So all we pretty much need is a property address here. And I'll just make up an address here real quick. Select this one property here. The moment you locate the property, you don't have to type the entire address. We autocomplete against the Google database. So the moment you find the address, you just select it there. The other piece of information we're going to need is the transaction type, right? So you're going to have to tell us what the transaction type is. So I'll just say this is a residential sale. I just listed this property, so I'm the listing agent. As you can tell, since I'm the listing agent, RealtyBackOffice is making it mandatory for me to add the listing price, right? But the sale price is, of course, not mandatory because I haven't sold this property yet, right? But if I might have added the transaction late, there's still an option for me to add the sale price just in case it might be under contract already, right? Now, since I'm the listing agent, it's asking me for the listing side commission. So, guys, this is a very important piece of information here that I'm going to tell you. So I just took this listing. I took a 6% listing. But as you can tell, RealtyBackOffice is only asking me for the listing side gross commission. So we only care about what you're going to earn in the transaction. Now, if you end up being the buyer's agent as well, which would be great, right? But if you end up being the buyer's agent, once that occurs, later on in the transaction, you could change your role from listing agent to listing and buyer's agent. And then at that point, RBO will ask you, so what's the gross commission now? What's the listing and selling side commission? That's where you would say 6%. But at this point, I just listed this property. What I know for sure is that I'm going to earn 3%. I hope I can also be the buyer's agent, but I don't know that for certain. So at this point, you'll say 3%, right? You're also going to want to say what the listing date is. It's today, and then the listing expiration date. We'll just say it's, I don't know, December 1st, right? And we'll say save. All right, so once we do that, as you can tell, the transaction has been added. At this point, once the transaction's added, now you can go into the transaction, okay? And once you go into the transaction, as you can tell, this page here is split up in 3 different areas. Over to the left, we have the very basic information for the transaction. All right, so pretty much everything I just added in that pop-up: transaction status, transaction type, my role, list price, things like that, right? And as you can tell, we automatically add the Google Street View of the property. So you don't have to worry about uploading any pictures. We're automatically going to get that from Google. In the middle section here, there's several tabs, with the Details tab being the default tab. We also have a Documents tab, Contacts tabs, Financials tab, Request tab, and we, of course, are going to look at all of these tabs right now. And then over to the right, there's another section with the default tab being the task tabs, right? So all of the different tasks that you should be working at this time, and then you can add like activities, okay? Now, we just created this transaction. If you wanted to, even though it's not mandatory, we try to keep things as simple as possible. If you wanted to add additional property information, you certainly can. All we need for the transaction is the property address, okay? And that, of course, you add at the very beginning when you're adding the transaction. If you want to as well, you can add escrow information. And what we definitely suggest that you do is add all of the different contingency dates. So for example, I can add an inspection contingency date, and I could say it's August 1st, for example, right? And once I add a contingency date here, you're going to want to update, right? Now, all of these contingency dates that you add are going to get added to your RBO calendar. Now, again, guys, we're going to keep things super simple for you today. We don't want to overwhelm you with a lot. RBO does a lot, and as time passes, you're going to see everything that RBO is going to do for you and your business. But again, we're going to stick to the basics today, and we're pretty much, again, just going to go over transaction management. But just know that any dates that you add over here under contingency date, of course, you're going to be able to see here inside the transaction. And in addition to that, you're also going to be able to see in your RBO calendar. Now, for those of you who have a Gmail account, which I would say for the most part, it's a whole lot of you, right, that have a Gmail account or a Google G Suite account, there's also an option for you to connect your Google account to RealtyBackOffice. And when you do, those dates, for example, this contingency date, will also show in your Google Calendar. So the moment you add this date, you can pick up your smartphone. Again, I'm not going to show you how to do that today, but just know, just so you know, it is available. And you can, the moment you add this date, you can pick up your smartphone and you can see that there's an inspection contingency date for this particular property in your calendar. All right. So that is that. Now, does anyone have any questions so far now that we've gotten into transactions? Ooh, there's a whole lot of questions. Oh, wow. Let me, all right, so there's someone saying it's too small. So yeah, it probably is. Let me make that a little bigger. This is probably bigger. Okay, so sorry about that. All right. All right, well, our previous transactions be in this platform. I think your office is going to be adding those little by little. Not sure about that, to be honest with you. Something you might want to ask the office. So Laura asks, is there a transaction type for land and commercial? So again, Laura, this is the demo account. Your brokerage can create unlimited amount of transaction types. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they do have land and commercial. All right. So, all right. So there's also a question. Sometimes we charge a 3% plus a transaction fee. So would there be a flat fee option? Yes, there is a flat fee option. So over here, when you're stating the commission in the left-hand side of the page, you can say if it's a percentage of price sold, or you can express it as a flat fee. Now I'm going to show you, you might charge 6% plus a $300 transaction fee. I'm going to show you later on in the transaction financials how you can add a charge item being charged maybe to the seller in this example for the $300. So definitely two different places where you could do it. If the scenario you are referring to is similar to the one I just suggested, where you maybe charge the seller a 6% plus a $300 transaction fee. I recommend you say 3%, and you add a charge item over here, and I'll show you how to do that in just a bit. All right, we don't have to add all the property details. Absolutely not, Laura. Not mandatory at all. You don't have to add all of the property details. It's all, we just have the very basic information. We believe that the place for you to, get the most detailed information about a property would be the MLS or maybe a tax roll, but not RealtyBackOffice. RealtyBackOffice is mainly the place where you're going to manage your transactions, and you just need to know the very basics. But if you wanted to, absolutely, you could come in here and add additional property information. All right. All right. So what other questions we have here? So third question is we haven't. So I think they're asking about adding referrals. And if you can, Micah, if you mean referrals, so there was a question I think about referrals. I'm not sure if you're referring to like leads, or you're referring to like if this was a deal, for example, that was referred to you by another agent, if there's a way for you to add that other agent over here so that your brokerage can pay that referral commission. Micah, if that is your question, absolutely, under transaction financials, I'm going to show you how to add under contacts a referring agent, and then I'm going to show you how in the transaction financials you can add a payout item going out to that referring agent, okay? All right, awesome. I think that pretty much answered all of the questions that were in queue there, so I will go ahead and proceed. All right, guys, so going back to details, we kind of went over all the details here. Again, you can add additional property information, you can add escrow information if you wanted to, and you can add contingency dates, all right? Now, the moment that you as an agent create a transaction, over on the right-hand side of the page, you're going to notice that there's some tasks that are going to trigger for you to work on. You as an agent don't have to worry about selecting any checklists or doing any of that. Any task that you see on the right-hand side of the page that automatically populate, you would see that task because it's a mandatory task that your brokerage requires, right? So for example, I am the listing agent in this transaction. I just listed this property. So my office is asking me to upload a listing agreement. Makes total sense, right? So all I need to do as an agent is go to Document, click on Add New. I say Add New Transaction Document. And let me just go over here. I'm going to upload any document I have here. I don't have a listing agreement, but I don't want to confuse you. Basically, what I'm going to do is show you, and you can do the same. I'm going to show you how you can rename a document. Let's just pretend this is a listing agreement, right? You'll come in here and you can click Edit Document, and you can rename the document. All right, so it actually worked out well that I didn't have a listing agreement. That way I can show you how to rename a document. So you can rename a document. And the moment, guys, that you upload that document, all you, the agent, needs to do is check off the task as complete. Now, if the task that you just checked off as complete required a document, there's going to be a second step where you're just going to have to say which document does this task that you just checked off belongs to or is associated with. So we're going to link it to the listing agreement, for example, and say save. So very simple, guys. Everything is checklist driven. The system tells you what is required from you. It's going to tell you a description of the task. It's going to tell you whether it's mandatory, recommended, or an if applicable task. And it's also going to tell you the due date, when you need to complete it by. All right. Now, the moment you complete the task, all you do is check off the task, link the task to the document it belongs to, and you're done. Now, as you can tell, this task here turned red. The checkbox turned red, right? And it's actually saying that it's pending approval. So there's certain tasks that are sensitive, right? Or that or that it's important that your company reviews the moment that you check it off, the moment that you check it off. And this is where we're going to start doing a little bit of role playing. I'm going to be doing a little bit of role playing here, guys. So right now, I was the agent. I just completed a task. I completed a task that required my admin review. So what's going to happen when you check off a task that requires admin review? Your admin is going to receive an email. All right, just like this. Your admin's going to get notified that you, the agent, just completed a task that requires a review. Your admin, again, you don't have to worry about this here. I'm just doing a little bit of role playing so that you kind of see how everything flows in RealtyBackOffice. Your admin, of course, is going to want to look at that listing agreement because they need to make sure it's in compliance. They're going to look at it, right? And if for whatever reason, maybe you scan the document, scanner missed the page, maybe there was an initial miss here and there, right? It could happen. We're humans. Your admin is going to let you know. All right, so your admin is going to come in here and they're going to add a comment to this task. Again, guys, you don't have to worry about any of this on the admin side. I'm just showing you a workflow. Your admin is going to say something like missing page 2. Please re-upload as soon as possible. And they're going to send that comment to you by email and say save. Now your admin's going to uncheck that task, right? And you, the agent, are now going to receive an email letting you know of that comment that your admin just finished adding. You, of course, are going to want to correct that problem right away. So I'm going back to playing the agent role. All right. You're going to, of course, correct that problem. You'll do what you need to do, right? And you'll come in here and you'll re-upload that listing agreement with the corrections, of course. You'll come in here, and this time around, you'll probably want to rename this document. You don't want to confuse your admin, right? And you'll call it something like the corrected listing agreement. At this point, you know, if maybe it was a page that was missing, maybe you just uploaded the page. If that's the case, and you would keep the original, if you re-uploaded the entire package and you could come in here and maybe delete that original, up to you, depends, right? But at this point, you're going to want to come in here and check off the task as complete again. Again, so everything checklist driven, guys. Very simple. Works just like a checklist. You're going to want to link that task to the corrected listing agreement that you just uploaded, and you say save. And just like the first time, your admin is once again going to get notified that you did that. So your admin's going to want to review that corrected listing agreement, right? So now I'm going back to playing the admin role. Your admin's going to come back into documents. They're going to look at the corrected listing agreement. And if this time around it looks good, your admin is now going to mark this task as reviewed. This task is going to go from red to green, and it's going to get removed from the checklist. That's it. You don't have to worry about that task anymore. Does anyone have any questions with that workflow there? So guys, there's a lot of questions. So I might not be able to go through all of them because we're talking about there's probably 20 or 30 questions on queue here. And if I go through all of them, we would probably be here for a few hours, to be honest with you. So, you know, a lot of these questions I'm pretty sure I'm going to answer as I go through. I'm going to kind of skim through them real quick and see if there's any that kind of jump off that I know I'm not going to cover. All right. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure I'm going to answer a lot of these questions. So there's a question. I work with a partner. Can we split commissions? Absolutely. I'll show you that in just a bit. All right. Can you upload multiple documents? Yes, I can come in here. That's a good question. I don't think that was something I was going to cover, but I could come in here and I can come and in my computer, in some computers it might be shift, and others computers it might be control. I'm not sure. I'm on a Mac, it's shift. I select two documents and I can certainly upload those two documents at the same time. There they go. So yes, you can upload multiple documents. Awesome question. Does it have to be PDF format? Yes, for the time being. I mean, you can upload a non-PDF document. but what you don't get is this preview here when you open it up. But you certainly can upload a non-PDF, but you don't get the preview. You can upload it and then download it, but for the time being, you don't get the preview. So great question there. So there's another question. Can you delete a document? Absolutely. You upload the wrong document. There's many options here. And guys, 3 little dots always symbolize a menu. So this is, for example, the 3 little dots symbolize the menu of this document I'm kind of hovering over. From here, I can edit the document, which allows me to rename the document I showed you earlier. I can give the document a description, and I can actually assign the document to a folder. So this I haven't shown you yet. I'm going to show you now. And to answer your question, can you delete? Yes, there's an option to delete. And of course, there's an option to email a copy as well. All right. Let's see, any other questions that kind of stand out that I didn't have planned on going over? Can you upload more than one document? I answered that. Do we get notifications only for incomplete tasks or for every time the admin reviews? Well, you're going to get notified when a task requires review. If a task doesn't require, and I'm not sure if the person, Hannah, that answered this question is an agent or an admin, but if you're an agent, you're going to get notified if a task requires correction. If a task doesn't require correction, then no need for that. So Micah asked about security is important. Absolutely, we take all security measures. Like we wouldn't be able to connect with Google if we didn't have all of the security measures in place. All right. All right. So I think, guys, that pretty much does it. All right. So I will go ahead and proceed here. All right. So you uploaded some documents and you checked off some tasks as complete. Now, one other thing that you guys can do, guys, is that you can create folders. So let's say you like to keep your documents super organized. You can create a folder called, I don't know, seller docs, for example, seller docs, right? And you could say save. So you can create a folder called seller docs. Now, if I wanted to put the listing agreement in there, at the moment, there's no drag and drop, but again, you can come over here, click on the 3 little dots. You can say edit document, and you could put it under the seller docs folder, say save. We'll remove that document from here and put it in seller docs, okay? Now, I'll continue with the tasks here. I see that my admin wants me now to add the sellers as a contact, right? So makes total sense. I just listed the property. I should have the seller contact information. So all I do is go to Contacts tab, upper right-hand side of the page, say Add New. I can add a contact, and we'll say the contact type is seller, and we'll add John here. If you've added John before, you won't need to add him again. You can auto-complete him, right? So you can just auto-complete him and say save, and there goes John. And again, just like a task that requires a document, all you need to do the moment you complete a task is check it off as complete, and you're done. Now, checklists, guys, are going to be used not only to let you know what documents you need to upload or what contacts you need to add to the transaction, but anything else. So your admin might use this checklist to recommend to install a for sale sign. Again, makes total sense. I'm the listing agent in this property, and I should probably order a for sale sign, right? The moment I do that, I check off the task as complete. All right. Now over here with contacts, a few of you asked, is there the ability to add a referring agent? Absolutely. Is there the ability to add a co-agent? So absolutely as well. So if you're adding a co-agent, let's say you're a team, right? And you're the main team leader, but you have a couple of team members in your team and you share all transactions with them, right? You can come in here and add a co-agent or team member. So as you can tell, there's 2 options. You can add a regular contact. So who's a regular contact? Anyone that's not a co-agent or team member. Who's a co-agent or team member? Someone from your same office. If it's an outside agent, it's going to be a regular contact. If it's an inside agent from your same brokerage, it's going to be a co-agent or a team member. So let's pretend I am the listing agent in this transaction, right? But I'm leaving on vacation. And I want one of my colleagues from the office to help me out while I'm gone, right? I can add a co-agent or team member, and I could say the contact type is co-agent. And I could say I'm inviting Carlos, right? And I want him to see the transaction details. I need him to see them, right? And furthermore, there's two options. If you allow the agent to just see the transaction details, and furthermore, if you allow him to edit the transaction along your side. If you're leaving on vacation and you want him to be able to come in here and do edits to the transaction, you're going to want to allow him to edit the transaction along your side. Now, the moment you do that, Carlos, the colleague from your office, is now going to see this transaction, which is your transaction. You'll always be the main agent, but now he's going to see the transaction within his RealtyBackOffice account. Now, the transaction is always going to be labeled as a transaction that he's a co-agent or team member on, right? Furthermore, again, guys, if you're a team leader would create the transaction and would do the same, would add the team members as co-agents, okay? Now, moving along the transaction, let's go to financials, all right? So this is a $500,000 deal, 3% commission. So RealtyBackOffice already calculated all of the transaction financials according to the compensation plan that I am in as your brokerage, or that I am in as the agent, right? So of course we calculated the gross, right? And then we calculated all of the transactions expenses. So how much you, the agent, are going to earn, how much your brokerage. Now, of course, your numbers are going to be totally different. Your brokerage has already set up the different compensation plans and have assigned a plan to you. I'm on a 50-50 split with my broker, and that's why my broker gets 50% off the top. I also pay my broker a $300 transaction fee, leaving me, the agent, with $7,200. Now, again, I understand your numbers are going to be totally different. But to answer a few of the questions I saw earlier, let's say that I charge the seller a $300 transaction fee. Well, what I can do is add a charge item over here, and I could say it's a transaction fee. This is something that's pretty customary, and I can just give it a description. I can say who I charge it to. My seller is John, so I charge it to John, the seller, and the amount was $300, right? And it was a flat fee, and I say save. Now, the moment we do that, we're going to readjust all the numbers. Now we have $15,300 total coming in, and my agent commission actually went up, right? And for the same amount, $300. Now, again, going back to the previous example where I was leaving on vacation and I added Carlos, my colleague, as a team member, and I actually agreed with Carlos that I was going to pay him $500 to help me out while I was gone, right? I could come in here and add a payout item, and I could say, again, it's a co-broker commission, and I'm paying it out to Carlos, right? And the amount, whatever I agreed with him, $500. And payout amount is a flat fee, payable to selected payee, and save. And again, I know I'm going a little quick, guys. You're going to have the recording. And again, I think that, regardless, you're not going to get it all. I'm just trying to show you the power of what, everything that you're going to have access to. I think with time and as you create your first, second, third transaction, you're really going to start to get it. So co-broker commission, we just added a line item for $500 for Carlos, and the agent commission just got reduced by that much. All right. So that's that there. Now, what we're going to do, guys, is pretend that we've been active for a while, right? The transaction's still active. We're marketing the transaction. We're marketing the property, but we just received an offer from a buyer's agent, presented it to the sellers. The sellers accepted the offer. So the moment a property goes under contract, you're going to want to tell RBO it went under contract. And all you need to do over here on the left-hand side is move that transaction from active status to under contract status, or pending. We call it pending, right? Now, the moment you do that, all you need to do is update the transaction. Now, RealtyBackOffice is not going to allow you to update it just yet, because it knows that if it's under contract, there must be a contract date. Let's say it's today. It knows that in addition to that, now that it's under contract, there must be a closing date or at least an estimated closing date. And it also knows that in addition to the list price, now that it's under contract, there must be a sale price. So we really don't let anything slip through the cracks. So we'll say we ended up selling for $450,000, right? Now that we filled out all of the required fields, now you'll be able to update the transaction. Now, two things just happened, guys, and I'm not sure if you noticed. I should have warned you beforehand. But two things just happened. The moment I did that, all of the transaction financials just got updated according to the new sale price. So you don't have to now come, you do not, and let me emphasize, you do not have to come in here now and try to reconfigure the numbers. We do that automatically the moment this sale price was updated. And now that the transaction's under contract, there's new tasks for you, the agent, to work on. All right, so sorry about that, guys. Give me a moment. Let me turn off my phone here. All right, so now there's new tasks for you, the agent, to work on. So if you just listed a property, your admin is never going to ask you for a purchase contract because you don't have it. You just listed the property. They're never going to ask you for the closing attorney because you typically don't have it either. So we're going to ask you for those type of tasks once the transaction is under contract. And that is the importance, guys, of course, creating a transaction the moment you put it together. And of course, putting it under contract the moment it actually goes under contract so that you can start working on those tasks right away and that you're not left with a bunch of tasks last minute for you to work on, right? So, all right, let me see if there's any questions. All right. So how about Outlook? So no direct integration with Outlook at the moment. There's questions, our direct integration is with Google Apps, even though we do have an integration. And again, this goes into probably a little bit more in depth training, but we do have an integration with Zapier and we can potentially connect with Outlook that way. All right. All right. What happens with all the client's info and documents when we move to the next back office software, which seems to be all right. That I'm not sure about, Micah. You're going to have to ask your office, but we can potentially help you import those contacts if you needed to. All right, guys. And again, there's a lot of questions, so I won't be able to answer 100% of them. I'm trying to do my best, but there certainly is a whole lot of questions. If you do have any questions after the training, you can always email support@RealtyBackOffice, or you can call us and we'd be happy to help answer any questions you might have. All right, so there's a question about invoicing sellers. So there's no way to invoice sellers, but you can add like notes here. So if you have transaction expenses, you can add notes, and you can use maybe an accounting specific software to invoice your sellers. So why did we have to start the transaction amounts before we accepted an offer? Well, this was a listing contract. So we listed the property for an amount, and when you take a listing, you always, of course, take it for an amount. So the moment you listed a property, so remember, with us, a transaction is either a listing or a buyer, right? So we listed a property, we create a transaction. When it goes under contract, we make it pending. So that's why we created a transaction. And of course, we said the listing amount. The listing amount is very important because one of the things that RealtyBackOffice does is that we can forecast commissions for you. Now we understand you list a property for $500,000. You're not necessarily going to sell it for $500,000, but it's probably going to sell to close to that amount. And one of the things you could do is forecast commissions, and I'm going to show you reports on how to do that a little later on. So if there's a task to be completed, do we need to sign in to see it, or can we get an email or text notification? So all tasks are going to show inside transactions, and they're also going to show in a task management view that we're not going to go over today, but those are the two places that tasks show. All right. So can we? I think there's a question about you, the agent, being able to email the office, or is it just for admins? Yes, you can. That's a great question. So let's say you're looking at a task right over here, and you're not sure exactly what your admin wants you to do with this task. Or maybe you feel it's not applicable and you shouldn't have to do it, right? You could come in here and you can add a comment as well. So you as the agent, you can add a comment and you could send it to the admin, and you can communicate regarding a task or regarding a particular task through here, through the comment. And all of those comments, and let's just go over here, all of those comments are gonna stay in a log over here, right? So each task, you could see a log of everything that's occurred for each task. So you could see when it was first marked complete, when a comment was added by your admin, when it was marked incomplete again, when you marked it complete, and then when it was finally marked reviewed, and a timestamp of each and every one of the actions there. All right. So yes, you as an admin, you can also add comments, all right, to a task. All right. Thank you for being with us, Rastain, and for the kind words. If the contract fails and goes under contract the second time, what happens to the original docs? All right, that's a great question. So if it's a listing, what I would do, so the question is, you're the listing agent in a transaction, buyer one, you go under contract, but the deal doesn't go through. What do? Well, what I see most brokerages doing, and what we suggest you do, is that you create a folder. You create a folder called, whatever you want to call it, buyer one, canceled deal, whatever you want to call it, anything that identifies that transaction, and you put all of the documents there. You don't have to create a separate transaction for it, because actually the transaction is actually the listing. And then you would just create a new folder for the new buyer, and so on. All right, so that's how I would handle it if it was a listing transaction. Now, of course, if it's a buyer transaction, you're going to create a transaction. You're the buyer's agent. It doesn't go through. You're just going to cancel out the transaction and you're done with it. But on the listing side, again, you're going to keep that listing and you're going to, of course, try to sell it to someone else. So I would put the documents of that first buyer in a folder, label it, give it a name that helps identify it, and those documents will live there for your records inside the transaction in its own folder there to help identify it. All right, is an independent TC added under co-agent team member, and will that TC get our email notices too? Good question, Gail. The answer to that question is you can certainly add the TC as a co-agent. Now your brokerage would probably need to add him or her as a user of the system, right? And will she receive notifications? I believe not. I have to confirm that, but I believe not. Only you, the agent, will. All right. All right, how to email CDA to the title company. All right, Janet, we're going to get to that right now. So give me a moment with that. Awesome question. All right, so we've gone over details, documents, contacts, and we've also looked at financials. All right, so we also looked at putting the transaction pending once it goes under contract, and we also looked at the different tasks that the system's going to generate once the transaction goes pending. Now, I'm not going to continue to work on these tasks because I think you guys get the gist of that there. But just know that all completed tasks, we automatically hide, right? We automatically hide. If you wanted to see them, you could click on the toggle switch here and see them. By default, we only show you incomplete tasks, okay? And then, guys, if you wanted to add your own task, upper right-hand side of the page, you can add your own task, something that you might want to do that your admin didn't necessarily create as one of the tasks, right? So with that said, let's pretend we've been under contract for a while, right? And what I'm going to do, I've been doing all this really on the admin side of the application. Let me go to the agent side of the application here, and just pretend that we've been under contract for a while. The closing is approaching. Closing's approaching. And you're the agent, and you want your broker to authorize a CDA. All you need to do, guys, is go to this request tab right here. When you go to the request tab, there's several options. And the only one that you need to worry about, at least for now, I think the only one you guys are going to be using is the paid at closing request. The only thing that you, the agent, needs to do is say request CDA letter. Now, RealtyBackOffice is not letting me do one just yet. And the main reason why it's not letting me do one is because I, the agent, I have not added a closing agent as a contact. So RealtyBackOffice knows that your brokerage, Brokers Guild, needs to authorize someone to pay you. And that someone is the closing agent or a closing attorney. I haven't added one yet. So it's telling me before you can submit this request, you need to add a closing agent. So all you'll do at this point as the agent is go back to contacts, say add new. So again, we're not letting anything slip through the cracks. Go over here, add a closing agent. And let's add our friend over here, Jack Miller with Jack title, and I say save. Now, the moment I do that, now I can go back to my requests. Now I can go over here and submit it. Now, RealtyBackOffice is going to always ask you to verify that you've looked at the transaction financials and that all the splits look good. Once you verify that, you say, yes, I have done that. And the moment you do that, your admin is going to receive a notification letting them know that you just requested to get paid at closing. So they're going to receive this notification here, right? They, of course, are going to go over here and review the transaction, make sure it's all in compliance, make sure the documents are there, the contacts are right, the financials are right, right? And if everything looks good, they're just going to come in here and approve your CDA. They're going to approve it with the click of a button. All right, and when they do that, you, the agent, are going to receive an email. All right, and there it goes. And attached to that email, there'll be a letter. And this would be the letter right here. Your logo on the top, customized for this particular transaction. How much is going to go to Vince Jones? Vince Jones is me, the agent. How much goes to RBO Realty? How much goes to Carlos Fernandez, the colleague that was helping me out while I'm on vacation? Ready to go on company letterhead. All right, all you need to do from here is forward this to your closing attorney or title company, and you're done. All right. Now, at this point, guys, you don't really have to worry about anything else. You'll probably go to closing, walk out very happy with the check in hand. Once your brokerage receives their check for their portion of the commission, they'll come in here and close out the transaction. You, as an agent, you cannot close out the transaction. Only your brokerage can. At this point, that's it. There's really nothing else for you to worry about. Now, that pretty much does it for transaction management. One more thing that we didn't go too in depth into, but you do have activities as well. Let me go to the agent side over here. Any important notes? So you spoke to the seller about a possible price reduction at the end of the month. You could kind of say this was a call and kind of, add some notes about that call and what you guys agreed upon, so that when you talk to the seller again, you can reference that note. So any important notes associated with the transaction, you can add here. All right, and a note could either be a call, a conversation, or a simple note. All right, but that pretty much does it for transaction management. All right, let's see if there's any questions. All right. Does this program connect to a list of title closers? No, we don't. But once you add the title company one time, you will never have to add them again. You add the title company one time, and you can just auto-complete the contact every time thereafter. The contacts are only the ones that the agent has entered, or all contacts that the agents in the office have entered. So the contacts is whatever your brokerage, typically contacts are going to be part of a checklist. So whatever your brokerage requires, if you're typically the listing agent, they're going to ask you for the sellers. Once the property goes under contract, they're going to ask you for the title company information. If you're the buyer's agent, probably going to want the buyer's agent information and so on. But you can add other contacts if you wanted to. Maybe you wanted to add, the appraiser, the inspection company. You can certainly add those contacts. Even if your office did not make them part of the checklist, you could come into contacts and, of course, add those contacts if you wanted to. All right, what if we want to add a rebate? A rebate going back to the buyer, you can certainly do that as well. So you would add a rebate going back to the buyer or seller or anyone involved in the transaction. That would be done through a payout item. All right, that would be done through a payout item. And you would add a payout item. Let's say I wanted to give a rebate back to the seller. I would say, all right, I'm giving them back $1,000. Actually, payout description, I would just call this a rebate to seller, and I would say that my seller is John, and I would say it's $1,000, for example, and I would say that it's a flat fee, and I would say that it's payable to selected payee, and I would say save, right? And then once I can come in here and I can cancel this request, do another request, and if I did that, there would be instructions to, and your brokerage, of course, approved it, there would be instructions for the title company to pay the seller or rebate the seller $1,000. So there's a question, don't we upload closing docs? It's really, every brokerage is different. If it's part of your checklist, then you probably need to upload it, so your checklist will determine if you need to upload closing docs, but I am pretty sure you do have to. And that's probably going to be a task that is scheduled like a couple days after closing date. All right, so you'll notice that once you add a closing date, that task will probably be scheduled a couple days afterwards. All right. So are there any written instructions available? Not sure what you mean by that, but most of our tutorials are all short video tutorials. Is that what you mean, Donna? And where do we get login and password? That's as soon as your brokerage makes you active, you're going to be getting those shown. All right, it looks like there's no other questions here on transaction management. Great questions, by the way, guys. Thank you very much for those. Again, guys, like I said earlier, there's a lot to Realty Back Office, but today's goal was mainly to go over the dashboard, go over creating a transaction, uploading documents, working with the task, working with the financials, and of course, doing your paid at closing request. The last thing that we're going to go over today, guys, is your reports. Now, remember, we do have training. We do have on-demand training. If you go right now to our knowledge base, you could go in there and go look at a whole 1-hour video of an entire workflow where we go through each and every one of the modules. So you can certainly do that. Or pretty soon here, we're going to be doing also a live training, and we'll announce the live training over here in our notification. We're going to be doing a live training, and you could join us in that session as well. And again, we go through an entire workflow. We go through the CRM, we go through the unified task management view, we go through the calendar, we go through the reports again, of course. We go through the people's module, call it people, it's like a contact manager. We go through integrations connecting to your Google account and so on. And we, of course, go through filling out documents, preparing them for e-sign and things like that. Even though filling out documents, I think you guys over there in Denver, Lewis was telling me you guys use a specific software for that, but we do have an e-sign component that you can maybe have as a backup, right? So real quick, before I let you guys go, let's look at some of the reports. So you as an agent, guys, you never have to second guess again. What's my sales volume? How many times do you get asked that question? You probably got to go to a spreadsheet or go through all your transactions to try to kind of figure that out. You could just go over here, sales volume, and you can see, all right, so far I've closed 5 transactions. This is my sales volume so far this year. And if I divide my sales volume by my number of transactions closed, it tells me that my average sale price is $436,000. Down at the bottom here, there would be a detailed report of by transaction type. I've only happened to close residential sales, so all my transactions are residential sales. But if you would have a mix of commercial, land, rentals, and things like that, there would be a detailed report down at the bottom. Now, this is year-to-date numbers, guys, But again, remember, upper right-hand side of the page is an upside down triangle, and that is your filter there. All right, so you can always click on the filter, and if maybe you wanted to look at last year's numbers, you can do that by closing date. Maybe you want to see, all right, what's my sales volume only as a listing agent or as a dual agent, right? You can do it. You can filter these numbers all those different ways there. If you need to know how much you've earned so far this year, all right, it's showing 6 transactions, and that's because I'm involved as a co-agent in one of the transactions as well, right? So in that previous one, sales volume, I only have 5. Here I have 6 because sales volume, we only allocate the sales volume to the main agent involved in the transaction. So I was the main agent in 5 transactions, but I've actually earned commissions for 6 transactions. That's because I was a co-agent in another one. So we also take that into consideration. So if your team members, if you're the main agent in a transaction, but you have team members, your team members are actually going to be able to see in their reports what they also earned in transactions with you being the main agent involved, right? And I hope that makes sense. But I've been involved in 6 closed transactions. I've earned $29,250 with an average check of this much and a detailed report down at the bottom. And again, upper right-hand side of the page, I can filter these reports. And last but not least, guys, one of the really nice things you could do with RBO is that you can forecast your commissions. Sometimes you want to spend some money in marketing, and you're not sure, what your pipeline looks like or how much you're going to be earning in the next, 30, 60 days, etc. Well, we give you a very good idea, and it's one of the important reasons of creating your transactions. And obviously, and this goes back to the question that was answered, I think earlier, why are we adding a list price if we haven't sold the property? Well, this is one of the reasons why. We listed a property, there's obviously a closing date. There's obviously the moment you list a property, a listing expiration date. There's no closing date, so we're going to base, for that one transaction, we're going to base the numbers based on the listing expiration date. The moment that there's a closing date, then we're going to base it on the closing date. But at least we want to give you a good idea of what you have in your pipeline and what you can expect to earn in the future. Now, by default, this is just monies going, monies you have in the pipeline in the future, right? And actually, we're looking at the sales volume pipeline. So this is what I have in my pipeline in sales volume, right? So I have $5.5 million, 14 transactions. My average sale price in my pipeline right now is $396,000, and detailed report down at the bottom. And I wanted to see how much commissions I have in the pipeline. Again, the same 14 transactions, $73,600 in commissions in my pipeline with an average check of $5,257.14. But maybe I want to know, how much am I going to earn in the next 30 days? So I can go 724. I can go to my handy filter, and I can go 724 to 824, and now that number goes from 14 to 9, and I see, all right, I'm gonna earn approximately, or have an estimated amount of earning in the next 30 days of $50,050. You know what? I can spend the $5,000 I was going to spend in marketing. All right. So again, guys, there's so much more to Realty Back Office, but again, we don't want to overwhelm you today. We wanted to keep it as basic as possible for you and only go over the main modules that you're going to be using. But, we encourage you to go to training and maybe go to the on-demand training. And at your leisure, when you have time, you can always look at this 1-hour training, and you can look at these short little videos here. These are all short, 2, 3, 4, 5-minute videos, very short. And then, of course, guys, if you have any questions, submit a ticket, upper right-hand side of the page. You can also schedule a 15-minute consultation with an expert. Don't do that until you get into your account, all right? Make sure you, get into your account, and if you run into any troubles, then let us know, okay? So with that said, let's see if there's any questions I could help answer here. Guys, I'm pretty much done. If there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out. If you could give me some feedback, what do you guys think? You think it's user friendly? How do you like it? Any questions? I'd be happy to answer, guys. All right. All right, so a bunch of questions came in. So Sandy, I am sorry if I missed some of your questions. I'd be happy to answer any you might have now. Again, there was a lot of questions coming in through the feed. I'm sure I missed a whole lot of questions. But if you have any questions now, I'm looking at the feed here, Sandy, and I'm so sorry if I missed any of your questions, but I'd be happy to answer any. So Julia says, seems simple and straightforward. Thank you for the kind words. Brad looks awesome. Excited to have something a bit more organized. Awesome. So Micah, if you have any questions, support@realtybackoffice.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. All right, awesome. Thank you for the kind words, James. CTM e-contracts, will we use it? To be honest with you, I don't know what CTM e-contracts is. If there's an admin in the session, Louis or anyone in the in admin, can you let me know if that's going to be used? All right. All right, so Sandy, I did get confirmation that it is going to be, it's still a requirement to use it. Again, we do have e-sign software. Like I said earlier, I think it's more of a second option, maybe for a document, maybe like some other addendum or something that's, or maybe even for personal use. You know, I think it's very easy to use, and you'll see when we do training that I think a lot of you will like it, but yeah, I think for the most part, you are going to be using a CTM. Mike Romano, that's a great question, Mike, but that's something that you, I think you're going to have to ask the office. All right, thank you. My pleasure, Sandy. All right, please repeat Denver info. Not sure what you mean by that, Ed, if you can elaborate a little bit. And again, guys, there's CRM, there's a way for you to organize your leads, to create action plans for follow-up with your leads and all kinds of things. But again, today we just wanted to keep it really simple, and that's a little bit more advanced and something that you can learn as you go. So Janet, you'll be able to go in as soon as you receive an email. The moment you receive an email with credentials, you'll absolutely be able to go in. I don't think they've turned anyone on yet, but I think it's about to happen pretty soon here. Need closing docs to be paid. Not sure, Ed. You're going to be able to do a paid at closing request, and the brokerage will determine at that time if there's required documents you haven't finished, and they'll let you know through the transaction. But the checklist will let you know. We'll guide you throughout the way. All right, practical, user-friendly. Thank you. My pleasure, Veronica. Thank you for the kind words. We appreciate it. And remember, guys, if you do have any feedback, upper right-hand side of the page, or anything you would like to see implemented in RealtyBackOffice, there is an option to do a feature request. So the little light bulb here, you could actually go here, and this takes you to our feature request module. And there's a lot of feature requests here. We pretty much, the more votes they get, obviously we give those features more priority. But yeah, you can do feature requests as well. Thank you for the kind words, Hannah. We appreciate it. Our pleasure. All right, guys, it looks like there's no other questions. So once again, I want to thank you for your time today. We look forward to helping you as an agent um, grow your business and work with Realty Back Office and answer each and every one of your questions. We look forward to making this as easy as possible of a transition for each and every one of you. So please know that we are available should you have any questions. You can always reach us at support@realtybackoffice.com. Support@realtybackoffice.com. Remember to visit our knowledge base as well. All right. And we look forward to hearing from you. All right. So thank you very much. Make it a great day. Make it a great day, guys. Take care and talk soon. Bye-bye.